So thank you for attending today. Welcome to September. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. If at any time you want us to stop the recording and talk about anything specific, just let us know and we'll go ahead and we'll pause that recording to have that conversation. So thank you all for joining us today. I see some familiar faces and some new faces, so that's always exciting. If this is your first time joining us, if you have the ability to do so, we ask that you update your name with your chapter if possible. It just helps it during the conversation that we have for people to know what chapter you're a part of or where you're located within the country. So today we wanted to start by talking about the topic of your chapter board cultures. We've been having some questions from people about how the board communicates with each other, how you collaborate and engage with one another. And so we just wanted to open up that conversation today. And maybe some of you have some really great examples of what you're doing within your own boards that other chapters might also be able to do, and those that are chapter president-elects might be able to start to implement during their presidency that might be able to help better communicate within the boards themselves. So if you guys are all comfortable with that, I'd like to start around board communication. Can you share with the group how your board communicates with each other on a regular basis? And feel free to come off mute at any time. I'll give a couple examples from chapters while you guys are thinking. Um, I know some boards have a Dropbox file that anything that they're working on, they're putting into a Dropbox or a Google Drive so that it's easy to see what's happening, or those overall files like the bylaws and things like that that are just a standard within the chapter that the board has access to those at all times. The meeting minutes, the board agendas, the board packets, anything that might be discussed. So they use that as a form of communication to store things and to work on documents together. I also know that some have email groups. So it's a group that if you email that, it goes to all of the board members. So it's being able to be very transparent with each other. So a board member doesn't come out and say, hey, I didn't know this was happening within the chapter. It's allows that transparency that everyone's included on those communications. So those are a couple examples that I've seen other chapters use. Do you guys have any different examples of how you're communicating with each other? Go ahead, Sarah.
I'll add in there, Kelly, that I think this is a good idea for even committees. We've started doing it for committees, and I put the link up on the top of the agenda. So on your agenda, if you put the link to the Google Drive on there, then that can help the board members that aren't always up to speed on where to look, or I don't know where to go, and that kind of stuff. Holds them a little bit more accountable. We've done that.
That's great. Thanks, Sarah. Chris, you came off mute.
Oh, we hold most of our communications at the meetings. So with the 9 different committees, that's where a lot of the details get worked out, and the I guess the events get scheduled and projects happen. So for example, next Tuesday we have our meeting. We have just an agenda with any attached changes, committee charters, anything like that. But we leave it mainly to the meetings, and then if the executive team meets, that's a whole different thing. So, but we are working to get a better board packet, maybe in 2025 when Jim Roswell, who's on the call, we can get I guess the Google Drive. That's what we're working on. So
Great. All right. And I think that Google Drive that really helps with collaboration as well. I know we have a committee of CEDs, and we've started using a Google document so that in live time, we can see what's being added or deleted from that document and sharing those notes live while we're having a meeting. So we have those meetings on Zoom, but we're working on that document together, and that really helps with the collaboration because you can visually see too. And I think that's something that not everybody realizes is some people are very visual and some people are audio. And so when they're having conversations, if you are able to have that visual component, I think that helps some people get an understanding of that flow as well.
Hey,
In
Kelly,
terms, yeah, go ahead, Emily.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think Amy might have started to come off mute. Amy, did you come off mute?
Oh, I did. I was just gonna, everybody was talking about the Google Drive and their board packet. Michelle, our CED, she links all of our stuff in our agendas. So she doesn't actually give us like hundreds of pages for a board packet. It's all linked to our Google Drive, and it just helps us, the point that was made by Sarah earlier, know where to look in the Google Drive, and that's been extremely helpful.
That's great. Thank you for that feedback, Amy.
Some of your
Good.
some of your database systems, the programs that you're using, can also have a place in there where you can include documents as well. So you may want to look into that. I know if you're using BlueUp, you can create groups of people. So you can create board groups, committee groups, things like that, and share information that way. So you may want to have your chapter executive director look into that if you're using a system like that.
Mhm. And some of those systems too allow for private pages. So for example, if you have all of the board members assigned as a board member, you can go ahead and you can have a page only available to them and share documents or specialty links on that page. So again, an easy way to share, again, where the Google Drive might be or something like that from your main website. In terms of getting engagement from your members on things, how has your board done that in the past? Or maybe you haven't. Go ahead, Amy.
I was gonna say, are you speaking about engagement from our board members?
I'm thinking more of how is your board getting engagement from the members, but also engagement from your board members? How do you keep your members engaged? So either way, I think works for this question, Amy.
Okay, well, I know we're gonna be trying something new in 2025 for our board liaisons to our committees. We're going to give them a monthly checklist. So when we're meeting at the board meetings, everybody's going to be bringing their report essentially back from the committee. That was something that we've struggled slightly with this year, is actually having the board liaisons really engage with the committees. So we thought that giving them like the roadmap of exactly what the expectation was and giving a committee report from each of the board liaisons would help us. Also, making sure that any communications coming from the committee's concerns, budgetary concerns, any changes that they may have coming up would be then communicated in a timely manner back to the board.
That's great. Thank you. Greg, I saw you had come off mute too.
Yeah, one thing we started doing is we're doing biannual suggestion box Zooms. So we send it out all to the memberships. Hey, what are we doing that you like? What would you like to see differently? We have it so they can post questions anonymously and or just on the Zoom itself. It really is just a let us have it. So the good, bad, and the ugly. And we've already been able to make several adjustments that have seemed to be working really, really well. So that's one thing that we've started doing.
And how often did you say that was, Greg?
Biannual.
Okay.
Does your board attend that, Greg, or is it just your CED?
Nope, all board members. So we want to hear it directly from them. And we just had an executive director changeover. So it's but they have been on the calls in the past. So
That's great.
And actually, you know what? I should comment on that because that was a moment. That's a great question, Amy. There was one where we purposely left the ED that was there at the time, who's no longer with us, off of that call because that was kind of a point of contention inside of the chapter. And so, yeah, there was an instance where we did have on, but we try to have them on as well.
I actually love that because we have a newer CED too, and I think that that would be helpful for the board to hear that firsthand. I would be curious to know what kind of participation are you seeing in that? Are you like, what are your numbers? Are you getting quite a few people engaged in those conversations?
Usually about 40.
That's not bad.
Not bad at all, yeah. And it's a good mix of newer members and long-term members from the chapter.
Greg, with that, how have you been able to keep it from not getting out of control of complaining. I know sometimes, as a lot of our members know, when you have that kind of forum, sometimes it's easy to snowball into a negative space.
Sure. So one, we want the negativity a little bit, not full blown, but we want
Yeah.
the constructive criticism so we can continue to improve. But honestly, strong moderator is the key. You got somebody that's got, all right, cool, we're going to stop this. Hey, no, let's talk about this off to the side. And you can really, like, we want the initial, but we're not going to let you beat a dead horse at the same time.
That's great. And I think that's really important to mention, is that moderator makes a big difference to the session. So if that's something that you plan to do, and the great news is I think we have a lot of experience within our members and probably serving on your board that can be that moderator. Again, they deal with that on a regular basis. So I think that that's great. Anyone else doing anything outside of that? Is anyone doing membership surveys to touch base with the membership on how they're feeling about the initiatives of the chapter? So that might be something to think about that you might want to do. I know we usually recommend every couple of years touching base with the members, making sure that they're feeling comfortable with things. And again, just to provide that space for feedback. I know our chapters do a really great job of collecting information outside of or after a meeting or a program. So even if you have that going on, even just asking a I can't talk right now, a generic question about the activities of the chapter or things that they would like to see or issues that they might be having outside of just that program, that might be something as an easy way to start to engage your membership as well.
Kelly, I just had a comment, and this is Leah from the Indiana chapter. We have we've sent out things in the past to the members, trying to get them involved in either upcoming events or to have some feedback from them. And on the last one that we sent from MailChimp, we noticed like only 36% were opening the actual email. So we did change it to just in dividing up the membership to maybe 50 per email on a blind carbon copy, just to try to get it out there so they open it, because we always hear the feedback, I didn't get it, or it went to junk mail. Does anybody have any suggestions?
I have a suggestion. We do this on our newsletter, which could in turn probably help you. When you do, like we use, I don't know which platform we use, whether it's Constant Contact or SurveyMonkey or whatever, but when we send our newsletter out, when you send it out, you can see what the hit ratio is and how many people opened it. And then we actually send again to the people that didn't open it. Like we'll send another notice out to try to get their attention that, hey, we've got a newsletter, maybe you missed it, but it only goes to the people that didn't open it originally. So it helps our newsletter get a higher hit rate with opening. And we actually just recently did that for an event that we had low attendance on. We did it like day of kind of a thing with people that didn't attach, and we were able to get a few more attendees. So we've used that strategy a little bit, but that could apply here too.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. I will say that the average open rate in general is anywhere between 15 to 25%. So you're right in that average. I know it seems pretty low, but at the same time, again, that's kind of the average normal open rate for bulk emails. I will also say, if you're getting people saying that they're just not receiving it, recommend that they save the email as a contact. So that usually tends to save it from going into the junk of their email. And a lot of people that I know don't have time to go through things that are getting filtered into a junk or a spam email. But when you save that as your contact, it kind of sets off a string within the email system to bring it into the main email box versus pushing it into a spam or a junk box.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other piece that I wanted to bring up around board culture is, how do you make sure that all of your board members are being heard? I know sometimes if there's a newer board member or maybe someone who has a personality that might be a little more quiet or shy, sometimes gets overtaken during a board meeting. So have any of you done anything to make sure you're getting the voice from the full board and not just the select few? Go ahead, Chris.
So for new board members this last year, I've met with them individually, and we've got a couple that are quieter during board meetings. So I've called them individually directly after, just asked if they felt comfortable. They are just taking it in. So they're, I guess, a little, they're shy, but that's what I've done just this year in 2024. But I know when I came onto the board president at that time also said, feel free to speak up at any time. You know, Robert's Rules of Orders, that's what we follow. And we get good participation by most.
I love that, Chris. Have you seen a difference in those people speaking up the next time?
The one board member was just on a committee meeting this last week with me, and he was speaking more. So we'll see at the next board meeting. He's recent, so.
That's
great.
great.
Anyone else have any tips to get your fellow board members more engaged during conversation? Have any
I
of you
was
been
just gonna
struggling? Go ahead,
suggest
Sarah.
that we haven't like we just created it and we're gonna push it this year, but we're now doing like board surveys, you know, something that our boards never did before, but it's to try to get the board member to communicate what it is that they might feel needs to change or how that, whatever the case is. But we do separate, we now have a personnel committee, so that separates the employee from it. So we did that, but now as president, I wanted to create something for the board. And so our employee goes through a review, a board goes through the review, like we do it simultaneously so we can get that feedback. So that's how we do it now. I don't have any results yet just because we're doing it this year, but we've at least got the documentation and the process in place, and now we'll do that.
Yeah. If Sarah, if you wouldn't mind sharing that with us, I think that'd be great. We do have
Yeah.
a board evaluation document
Yep.
for you to go through and do that. And so
No,
that's in
we
the
took it
toolkit.
from you guys.
That's great.
And then we kind of created it based on our questions. So I have that. We also created like responsibility. Like it seemed like sometimes people didn't know what their roles were. Whether you were on a committee or a committee chair versus, you know, like a liaison or even just a board member. And so we actually have a really lengthy document that describes everybody's roles and responsibilities through a given year. And then the last document we've created or we're creating and finalizing is a timeline, and it will be for all of the committees to then be able to see, these are the things I have to do throughout the year. Here's the timeline I have to follow. So, you know, it allows a little bit more content and just organization between the committees and the boards and then the understanding of what needs to be done.
Absolutely. And as a new person coming into that, kind of knowing the expectation of the timeline of, hey, when is the budget? When are we talking
Yeah.
about that? Or when do I need to give numbers to you? Is it November or is it
Yeah.
June? So I think making sure you have those expectations. So I think that's great.
And for committees too, because I started pushing committees, like if committees want to start trying to contribute financially, like the marketing committee, we have a newsletter and now we have paid spots on there. So I make it so that each committee has to then submit, you know, these kind of things, and they've got to think about it, their budget or whatever it is. So we kind of make them create some sort of income if they want to be able to spend some sort of revenue so that it helps the chapter.
Yeah. Everyone's involved, right? Everyone's got a piece of the puzzle. That's great. All right. Thank you for posting that, Emily. She posted a link to the exchange with that board evaluation. All right. So at this time, that's really what I wanted to discuss with you around board culture. If there's anything else that anyone wants to share that you're doing on your boards or that have been successful to make sure that communication has been strong within your boards, please feel free to share. But I'd also like to open it up at this time for all of your questions. Is there anything you'd like to throw out to the group for us to discuss today? Go ahead, Chris.
One question, I don't even like bringing it up because we've been revolving around it for 4 years. Websites. Who has a great website that looks new, fresh? I like Illinois. I've been looking at different state chapters. We have been trying to get ours updated for years, and we keep adding modules, but it's just, does anybody have a solution that worked great and your chapter loves it?
Arthur, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is all fairly new to me, but coming from our old website that was managed by MembersClick, transitioning over to Glue Up, and unfortunately we haven't had that person in place to manage that correctly, but the Glue Up app that we use, or the Glue Up that's hosting our website, I've seen a tremendous amount of capability that it has, not only for events, but on the back office side, actually seeing the revenue that's coming in for these events and so on and so forth. So I think the capability of that is is dramatically underused for what we're using it for. But we've been without a CED for quite some time, and thank you, Emily, for helping us out through this whole transition. But I think with our new CED in place, that we'll be able to maximize the potential of that website. But having all those tools and in one place that you could actually see what's happening and getting everyone connected is just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. And I think Chris too. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Oh, just real quick on that Glue Up. We run off the same system. The one problem that we do have, and we've noticed, is that we cannot run marketing plan through it because it wants to put everything into an individual event. So it's really hard for it to talk to our accounting software. So there is some issues with it that we've experienced over the last, couple of months in going through that. So just one thing for you.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, so there's those out of the box systems. So some systems that people are using that also host a website with the back end, there are some limitations with templates and things like that of how your front facing website looks, where some then go to a third party vendor similar. That's Illinois uses a third party. It's not an out of the box system, right? So, and I believe Channel Islands also does that as well. They use a different website provider than for the backend database. So I think that's the difference too, is there might be some restrictions and template pieces if you're using the full box design. So like, for example, Glue Up does do that, but if you decide, hey, they're great for our back end, but not our front end, then you might want to do that. So also taking a look at, do you need the boxed system for your database and you're really happy for the database, the back end system of how it works, but it's just the front facing that maybe it's time to go to a third party? Or is it you want the full complete package? So I think there's some different kind of options that you can look at. I will say that we are planning next year to collect the information from all of the chapters on what database systems and website systems that all the chapters are using. So hopefully the first quarter of next year we'll have that list, and we'll be sharing that with the CEDs so everyone knows kind of what they're using, and if they are looking for change, what chapters are using that, so they can have those conversations with other chapters as well of, again, the successes and the challenges that you have with the different systems out there.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Is anyone else looking at changing their website or database within the next year that's on the call? Okay.
I think Western Oregon is, they're not on the call, but I think they are. I know that it seems like it's been quite a problem, like for some of the chapters I've been involved with. It seems like the website's so daunting. They don't know who to do it. It seems like chapters spend a lot of money and resources in order to get this done, and then it's not even done right. And like, I don't know, it'd be nice if there was maybe something on from like the national level as far as like some of these service or vendors that could like support the chapters, like bookkeeping would be one. I know that some of the chapters have, struggle with that. Just finding certain vendors that we all kind of need, but that are not, like that are just going to be better off for us. I don't know. I just feel like this is such an area
Yeah.
we all have
Hey,
issues in.
Sarah, so we recently started, some of our chapters started working with Gordian staffing on it in that way. So I know one of our chapters uses them for bookkeeping, one of our chapters is using them for marketing, and they're willing in some cases to trade for advertisement within your chapter. So if that's something you're interested in, I have a list of things that they could help with in their contact, and I'd be glad to share it with you. Before we put it out there to all the chapters saying, hey, you use this, we're kind of feeling it out, to see how it works. So I would say that it's not completely, vetted, all of that. But I have heard from the couple chapters who are using it that they've been really happy with that. And they're learning CAI. So if you're interested, I can pass that information along to you.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah, I mean,
and then,
I don't think we need it. Like Quirk doesn't need it, but
Okay.
I don't know what Western Oregon's doing. I just thought I would it just sparked an idea.
Yeah.
With regard to that being, and then the bookkeeping was another one that I could think of. And so,
yeah,
we were careful though. I think that, when you start, we had a vendor one time on the Western Oregon side, accounting, and like they did it for free. And we kind of felt like there was a conflict of interest there when you start giving away free advertising for services that they give to a chapter. So I feel like kind of have to be careful around that, because you're not giving free advertising to the others that are coming and, maybe volunteer and do setup and all this other stuff. So I feel like that's where the slippery slope is. But I think having the name and being able to budget is a start, a
Yeah.
good resource.
I
And
agree with that for sure.
And I will say, in terms of the databases, one of the things we've been able to do is work out some discounts with chapters if we hit a certain level of chapters using a certain database system. And so I know Glue Up is one of those. Personify, which is member clicks, and Wild Apricot is another. And then there is also, I forget the third one at this moment, but we do have three that provide our Growth Zone. Those chapters do provide that, and your CEDs have access to that information and that piece. Again, we don't usually send that out to the board because usually your staff is the one who's doing a lot of those pieces. So we do share that with them, and they've got access to those along with demos for that. So, but if you have any other systems that you guys love, or you hear that your CEDs love, please let us know, because we're always looking and trying to share different systems out there within the chapter network. Again, if it's successful and it's great, why recreate the wheel or go out searching if there is that option? Great. Any other questions for the group? And while you guys are thinking about other questions, I also want to share, because we were talking about websites, in a few weeks, we will be launching CAI's new website. So you will see a new look and feel in a few weeks for that. We've been working on this project of a complete website overhaul for quite some time now. And so we're excited to be launching that. And so we will send out a message to all of the members sharing that. As the leaders of the organization, if you're running into any issues or struggles, again, as all of you know, when you launch something new, it's a learning curve, and sometimes it's hard to find things. But if you're hearing something or you're running into those roadblocks, please feel free to reach out to us. In the weekly email we send out, we're going to give you an email address to reach out to if you are struggling with any of that. But so that's right around the corner. So I just wanted to share that with you all, that you will see a new look and feel to the CAI national website in just a few weeks. So we're very excited for that.
Do any of the chapters use a phone app?
The only ones that do, I know, are connected to the database system that they have. So for example, Wild Apricot system, which is a part of Personify, they have a phone app option. And so several of the chapters that use them also utilize that app feature.
We
Amy,
know
just
how
real quick,
successful they are.
Go ahead, Greg. Sorry.
Sorry, Amy, real quick. Aren't you guys still using the LA app?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, there is an app that we created in like 2017, 2018 when I was elect out there. So I probably still have it on my phone. I could send it to you.
Okay, yeah, not that I'm aware of. I don't have it, and I joined in about 2018, so maybe I missed that boat.
Okay.
And in terms of success, I'm not really sure how successful they have been with it. I think the hard thing with apps is it's got to have a specific purpose with it. So I don't know if people are going there to register for events or if they're communicating with each other through that. So we can definitely follow up with the CEDs of those chapters and see how successful those are.
Yeah, that was my question: is what was the purpose it was serving, and are they seeing responses on that level, on the app level?
Yeah. Carl, I see you came off mute.
Hi there, everybody. Central Indiana. So we use Wild Apricot or Personify. And so about 4 years ago, our chapter was faced with the opportunity to either live with our current wreck of a website or hire somebody to fix it. And so we did an analysis and I determined that I could just fix it myself. So we decided to go with the Wild Apricot way. I don't have any background in creating a website, but I learned. And so over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been very successful. And now we use the website for the communications of all of our chapter events. We have the store that is live. So like we have our golf event coming up next week and folks are able to go on there and purchase their golf tickets. It's so easy. Just in the last couple of months, we now are using the credit card feature. It has really turned a complete 180 for our chapter and our ability to make things streamline and become extremely efficient. I definitely support the Wild Apricot platform. I think it is a great way for somebody who knows almost nothing about creating a website to be very successful with this, and it's a reasonable price as well.
Great. Thank you, Carl. Arthur, I see you're off mute. I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything else.
Yes, so we transitioned over to the MyGlue or the GlueUp app or the GlueUp hosting services this year, and they do have a mobile app that's available for iPhones and all smart devices. And it's been wonderful being able to check in events and seeing the members directory. But the only hiccup that we've seen so far is getting everybody on board to get their information updated, because it has the ability to share QR codes for your contact information, everything else, and look at all the kind of stuff. So I'm pretty impressed with it so far.
Great. Thank you. And I think that goes back to the purpose. So if you are looking at an app, what is that purpose and making sure you have those features. So, Arthur, you mentioned something that's a need for a lot of our members is that directory of when they're looking for a provider for something, having that one spot shop to go to. And I know a lot of chapters still provide that printed book because people want that and an easy access for that when they need to look for somebody. So again, if you're doing an app and that's one of the purposes, making sure that your app is able to do that feature and that it's easy to use. So really look into, kind of what the purpose is. Is it to provide certain services? Is it to network with each other and kind of figure that out before really going deep into that path?